With the return to democracy following the PPP victory in the free and fair elections of 1992, Guyana has since witnessed tremendous economic turnaround, massive infrastructural development, and the rebuilding of its various social services.
Some of our major thrusts will be relief from the huge foreign debt burden, increase in development assistance to rehabilitate the physical and social infrastructure, introduction of structural adjustment with a human face, and alleviation of poverty through a basic needs strategy, increase in foreign and local investment, increase in production and exports, and protection of the environment, ensuring good governance, a clean and lean government, efficient management, strict accountability, and respect for the rights of citizens. An end to all forms of racial, ethnic discrimination, and an accelerated program for the indigenous Amerindian people.
The unprecedented development since continues unabated 21 years after and would remain the hallmark of the administration for many years to come as the ruling party continues to unfold a plethora of transformative projects. Guyanese from all strata of society and geographical locations continue to benefit from the astute leadership of the PPPC government.
There is a lot of improvement going on right now in Georgetown. I think it's good in terms of employment, in terms of where people would get jobs. I think it's okay.
Well, basically the investments is great. The force of tie with our neighboring country. Okay, they increase trade, and it could the investor could increase employment too in Guyana, because we know the job market in Guyana is very low, and with the Takatu Bridge as well as the Burb Bridge, they invested from Suriname and as well as Brazil would come and see what Guyana have to offer.
Staying steadfastly to its commitment to fast-track Guyana's development during 1997 to 2007, the administration did face some challenges. The death of its founder leader, Dr. Cheddi Jagan, in March 1997 was not only a severe blow to the party, but to the entire nation. The country was plunged into mourning as its hero in the struggle for freedom had fallen.
Guyana has lost perhaps its greatest leader, and not only Guyana, but the Caribbean as a whole.
Well, we lost a great son in Guyana, and he was the best thing out. He don't get racial in him. He always talk, everybody must unite and live.
We have lost a very noble son in this country. He was a very good man. People love him.
The death of the president, I was very sad. This morning, tears came to my eyes because, after all, he was a very great Guyanese.
So what I'm sorry very much about it, for the president dying, right?
The death of the president is the greatest loss to this country.
I felt very sad about our president, and he is a very great man. He did very well in 4 years for what he has served.
Here the president, we can't find a man in Guyana anymore, like Cheddi.
It was very much shocking. I can remember actually 2/3 of the workers at the Albany Estate did not go to work the morning. They came out in large number and they held out black flags parading in the streets and on the public roads in large numbers.
A nation was now without its father, and the party faced with the stark reality that its indomitable and infallible leader was no more. This provided fodder for some to question the party's ability to survive. They were proven wrong. First and foremost, the party ensured that it stuck to the Constitution with regards to succession. This resulted in Mr. Samuel Archibald Hines, a non-PPP member and who served as Prime Minister under the presidency of the late Dr. Jagan, being sworn in as the nation's 4th executive president. At the same time, Dr. Jagan's widow, Mrs. Janet Jagan, was sworn in as Guyana's first female Prime Minister. 9 months later, in December 1997, she led the PPP to a resounding victory in the general and regional elections. She became Guyana's first female executive president. Resolute to her husband's and party's vision, she embarked on her mandate to mold a better Guyana. Her efforts in this regard were strangled by the opposition, who launched massive and violent street protests aimed at removing the democratically elected government from office. They vilified Mrs. Jagan with brazen public racial attacks. Not only did the opposition refuse to accept the results of the free and fair elections of 1997, they showed their disdain for a white woman ascending to the nation's highest office, despite the country being of diverse ethnicities.
During the election campaign, the campaign was against my mom. It wasn't even against the party. It was more against her. It was all because her being white, her not being a Guyanese born. It was very vicious. They came out in the streets chanting. They held up these dolls, and the white dolls, and they were beating them.
Okay, good. And very hostile.
One of the questions is that she's not a born Guyanese, right. But she's been there from the very beginning. I mean, she's put her neck out more than most Guyanese, and she's more Guyanese than most Guyanese you'll meet. She's more Guyanese than I am, that's for sure. The things that she'll put up with and make do with. I want some luxuries, but Janet isn't.
The violent protests resulted in unruly mobs attacking, robbing, and maiming innocent people, looting and setting fires to public and private entities. Their actions, which infused fear into the populace, also negatively impacted on the economy. Business was stagnated, the country embarrassed internationally, and investors apprehensive. The stride made since 1992 were threatened, and the nation's forward propulsion halted. These irresponsible actions by the opposition were prolonged, thereby exacerbating fears and plunging a nation that was on the path of rebuilding into uncertainty. CARICOM intervened, and the end result was that the party's mandate to rule was cut from 5 years to 3. Despite being denied 2 years that it democratically won, the party showed its magnanimity and agreed having foremost consideration for the nation and its peoples. The opposition refused to budge in its non-recognition of Mrs. Jagan and her government, and did its utmost to derail progress and the implementation of much-needed developmental programs. This clearly was one of the biggest challenges the party faced up to that point. It continued to show tremendous character and resilience and forged ahead. Illness forced President Janet Jagan to resign in 1999. Finance Minister Bara Jagdeo, who was named Prime Minister before the resignation, succeeded her as president. He became the youngest head of state in the Western Hemisphere.
It is my fervent hope that the recent acts of disruption and violence will cease. These prevent our children from going to school, disrupt our people's lives, and stall the progress of our country. They do not solve anything. I'm aware that the electoral process was not without shortcomings. These affected all the contesting parties, but we are encouraged by the declaration of the independent local and international observers that the elections were fair and that the results are the free expression of the will of the people. The elections are over. All partisan political signs and symbols must be put away as we embrace each other as Guyanese. At elections time, contending political parties engage in keen contest, and the environment quite naturally becomes tense. But election 2001 is past. I want to assure my political opponents in those elections that we are not enemies. As president, I will strive my utmost to include everyone in the process of working to achieve common goals for the whole nation and for making life better for all Guyanese.
Immediately, this young and energetic economist set about his formidable task of continuing his party's vision for a better Guyana. He led the party to another resounding victory in 2001. Once again, the party demonstrated its resilience to overcome the various challenges presented by the opposition by winning a third massive electoral triumph in 9 years. Not only did President Jagdeo set about to modernize the country, but he engineered constitutional reform. One major aspect of this reform was the enshrining term limits for the presidency. This was another demonstration of the PPP's magnanimity and commitment to democratic society. These reforms, the freedoms which were restored, and the transparency in governance were not only lauded by the international community, but earned its respect. The nation was now firmly set on a path to transformation. The plethora of successful developmental projects embarked on during this period has resulted in the bestowing of the title Architect of a Modern Guyana to Mr. Jagdeo. The quest to place Guyana in the global environment, and which began with the late Dr. Jagan, moved ahead in leaps and bounds under the stewardship of President Jagdeo.
My vision is to create a country in which everyone has a sense of belonging and an opportunity to contribute to its development. I want to speed up the process of constitutional reform and expand the role of the legislative arm of government in the task of governance. However, inclusivity must not be restricted to the legislative arm of government. I hope that when I meet with the leader of the opposition, we will discuss this matter further. It is critical that we engage one another in dialogue. We should always reach out and talk to each other. In this way, we would be fulfilling the mandate of all Guyanese as we share our differing views in the search for national consensus on the common objective of making this country a better place for all. Together, we can work on issues and programs that really matter to our people. There is so much we can achieve through genuine partnership. There is still much more to be done to enable our people to live a good life.
A continuous corps of highly trained professionals, both of local and overseas origin, was brought on board to help in the rebuilding and transformation process. International agencies responded and supported Guyana's developmental thrust. Tangible results are evident of the party's response to the call for alleviating poverty as a social evil and for moving the nation along the road to modernization. For this, the emphasis on education was key.
We will be developing a national policy on science and technology, which I consider to be long overdue. And this is being done with the help of UNESCO. And the national policy will be accompanied by a management plan of action. Also, UNESCO, through the auspices of the office in Jamaica, has helped us in developing a policy on school health, nutrition, and HIV and AIDS. They were very instrumental in that area. So Guyana has been benefiting in large measure from assistance from UNESCO in these areas.
Freedom of expression, which had been restored in 1992, soared, and by 2007, Guyana boasted 23 television stations compared to 3 before it took office. Newspapers' entities doubled and many magazines were introduced, all of which operate freely, with many openly criticizing the administration, a far cry before the dawn of a new era. There are 160,000 internet users in Guyana accessing services without any restriction.
10 people were given radio licenses. Only one of them is broadcasting. And since I became chairman of the GNBA board, I have been meeting with these people in several places. I've been asking the other 9 new radio licensees, what is happening? Why aren't you all broadcasting? You are licensed to broadcast. Some of them have problems with equipment.
The developmental thrust took on many fronts, one of which was the provision of potable water. Massive works were undertaken to improve the sources of potable water supply, and by the end of 2007, more than 65% of citizens on the coastland and in the hinterland had access. Public standpipes were reduced on the coastland, pumps and water treatment plants were installed, wells dug, and mains were laid.
As it stands now, GWI does have a vision, and that vision is to ensure an efficient, sustainable, and financially viable water and sewage sector, delivering a high-quality service to customers. Now, to have an efficient company and to be sustainable and financially viable while providing this high quality of service is a challenging and difficult mandate. There's no secret about that. And since the incorporation of GWI in 2002, GWI has been tasked with this responsibility and to provide water to improve the lives of customers. And we have been working towards this goal. However, there's a challenge to be able to achieve this goal. We're faced with a number of challenges. The asset condition of the water sector in Guyana is quite old. There have been a number of interventions over the years to improve the asset condition, but as a whole, the utility has an aging asset base. And there's an accompanying cost associated with the running and maintenance of this asset base.
By 1992, an estimated 33% of the country's housing was over 35 years old and not properly maintained, and at the minimum, 5,200 housing units per year were needed for at least 10 years so as to relieve the chronic overcrowding. By 2007, almost 90,000 land titles were granted. Squatters were able to legitimize their status when 165 squatting areas were regularized and over 150 new housing schemes were established. Further, to make it easy for new homeowners, financial institutions granted housing loans at very lower interest rates and longer repayment periods.
We at the NDC would have to encourage a partnership approach with residents of the community to maintain and sustain social and economic development within the housing scheme. From the NDC end also, they have a responsibility to ensure that the existing laws are fully adhered to with respect to processing of application forms, and also to sensitize the people of this area with respect to appraisal and assessment for the implementations of rates and taxes 2008.
The provision of premium social services to Guyanese was enabled through the implementation of a number of policies and programs to cater for the needs of the vulnerable, particularly the elderly. By 2007, pensions were increased by more than 80%, and the process to waive the water tariffs for this group began. Work also began towards the establishment of a child protection agency to provide services and counseling to abused children and their parents or guardians.
We have responded to over 5,013 children who were mistreated and maltreated, and found more than 828 safe places for children to protect them from harm and abuse. With assistance from UNICEF and ChildLink, formerly Every Child Guyana, we were able to provide psychosocial support for over 6,922 children and their families. Assistance for families to safely care for their children and to end abusive behavior. But sad to say that in spite of all of our efforts, we were not able to protect all the children that needed protection.
To develop a safer and more efficient road network and to maintain standards in road construction and maintenance, huge sums were spent on either repairing or constructing new roads. By 2005, 79 other structures, including culverts and smaller bridges, were constructed between Rosignol Region 5 and Tumeri Region 4, and 2 new concrete bridges were built at Mahaika and Maikoni. Bridges were also built along the East Coast and East Bank Demerara as in other areas. Amerindians reside in some of the most difficult terrain in Guyana, and the PPPC worked towards making most of these areas more travel-friendly and provided improved accessibility both for visitors and residents of hinterland communities. The plan to link the hinterland and the coastland includes fixing the main road from Linden to Leshem, the construction of a new road connecting Region 8 to 9, and the renovation of all the bridges on the trail.
It now presents a link between the 2 regions, a more improved link, because I'm sure there's always been a link between the 2 regions and cooperation between the 2 regions. Because I've heard Regional Chairman 8 said that he did spearhead a number of activities on this end, including support in upgrading the roads. And for Region 9, I think it's also an opportunity for you to be more cooperative with your brother chairperson and the 2 administrative regions together. I know you also provide them with a service to Fairview, meaning that Fairview is more closer to you and you also look after them in a great way.
The development of Amerindian communities has improved tremendously under the PPPC administration. The transformation of education for the nation's first people has been enhanced through new school buildings and dormitories, hot meals, school uniform and scholarship programs. Improved hinterland healthcare is evident in the construction and rehabilitation of health centers and outposts, trained Amerindian medical personnel, and more hospitals. All across Guyana, there are currently 13 regional hospitals, 19 district hospitals, 140 health centers, and 208 health posts. From these, each Amerindian community in Guyana can access medical care. Hinterland agricultural projects boosted by government have seen farmers receiving farming tools and transportation, while the expanded hinterland road networks provide easier access to farms, markets, the coastland, and other hinterland communities. Amerindians have also been elevated to top positions in government within the region and further afield. Several have also been honored with national awards. One of the country's major accomplishments has been realized with the first 4-lane road. Commuters have been relieved of traffic congestion on the East Bank and East Coast roadways. Government continued to secure the coastal and riverine areas through improving river and sea defenses. Riprap structures were constructed on the West Demerara, while in the East Bank Berbice area, earthen embankments were strengthened. Sea defense works in various regions brought relief to areas battered by high tides. By 2007, Guyana had met most of the requirements to encourage investors as the macroeconomic environment began its 6-year stretch, which would see a stable currency and low inflation. Sustained economic growth became a norm.
None of the progress that we have made or any of the successes that we have recorded as a country over the past 2.5 years can be said to have come easily. They were achieved against a global background characterized for the greater part by uncertainty and volatility and conditions that were generally against our favor.
Positive relations with neighboring countries like Venezuela, a major trading partner, and Brazil, a rapidly emerging economy, flourished. Commercial businesses have proved the dynamism of the Guyanese economy, and the rewards are being enjoyed by entrepreneurs.
We welcome all aid for trade and all the support from the WTO and like-minded partners. And this is where I'm pleased that so many of you are here today, because interagency collaboration at the local level becomes extremely relevant and critical. The government of Guyana is already undertaking that is significant trade and business development reforms under the National Competitiveness Strategy, with support from development partners such as USA, IDB, and the European Union. The project interventions under the National Competitiveness Strategy are already impacting positively on the trade facilitation environment at the Guyana Revenue Authority, for example, and in particular customs. What I wish to underscore about this strategy is the fact that its implementation is undertaken jointly by the government and the private sector.
The end of the decade saw the results of the dedication to foster development in all aspects. By 2007, Guyana was now ranked as a developing country in the same category with Brazil, India, China. International recognition had been attained. This was manifested in the hosting of some of the Cricket World Cup matches, for which a brand new multipurpose stadium was built on a 68-acre plot of land at Providence. The stadium boasts a seating capacity of approximately 15,000, a parking space for about 4,000 vehicles, a high security zone, a conference hall, VIP and media center. Many Guyanese invested in the hospitality sector for the historic Cricket World Cup. This was another sign of confidence in a now robust economy. Boasting a swimming pool, a casino, and a spa, the Princess Hotel Guyana offered stylish accommodation to visitors who came to see the matches. A few months later, the Rio Summit was hosted by Guyana at the International Conference Center. Many heads of state were in attendance. The progress seen during 1997 to 2007 was testimony to the vision of the PPPC. It laid the platform for the country's propulsion to modernization and for a small nation to lead on international issues.